Exactly what he said.
John 19:34. And then he also claims to be the eyewitness within the gospel itself multiple times.
So Jesus Christ, who came according to them voluntarily to die on the cross,
It need not be discussed in academia further. Do you really understand how stupid an argument you're making?
when the only gospel writer mentions about the dead saints coming up from the ground and appearing to multitudes of people in the city,
Most of first century Christian history is lost to us.
does it name Jesus? Does it say Messiah? Or does he actually talk about the suffering servant who's Israel?
He has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. Who is it referring to?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Carpenter's Desk. Virtually all historians, regardless of their religious convictions, agree that Jesus died by crucifixion. Jesus died. Bart Ehrman, one of the most prominent critics of Christianity and atheist, he calls it one of the most certain facts of history. Gerd Ludemann, another prominent atheist historian, says Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable. He goes on to say it need not be discussed in academia further. So virtually all historians are on the same bench. They say that Jesus died on the cross. But why such a consensus? The reason is simple. We have multiple sources from the first century, both Christian and non-Christian, like Tacitus and Josephus and Suetonius, all within the next 100 years of the event, recording that Jesus died. So it is unlikely that one should deny the fact of Jesus' death, unless, of course, you're blinded by your faith. And that's the Muslim view of Jesus. The nail in the coffin to this view comes also from modern medical science. Several studies published in peer-reviewed medical science journals have examined the medical dimensions of Jesus' death, and they all confirm that he was dead on the cross. In John 19 verse 34, there is an interesting observation that the gospel writer records, that he saw blood and water gush out from Jesus' side when the soldier pierced him. Now that is very interesting because only John mentions this. None of the other three gospels dare to record that particular incident. And the very next verse, John says the reason he's mentioning it because I was an eyewitness. I actually saw this. Despite the fact that I cannot explain it, I saw water spill out separately from the blood. But guess what? Today, medical science confirms this particular phenomenon. It's called pericardial effusion and pleural effusion. So if you're a reasonable person, then such modern medical science corroborations to the first century event should convince you that Jesus actually died on the cross. It was an eyewitness account. But that's not the case if you're blindly held by your religious text, and you would then discard all historians today as well as the medical science. Cut to the chase, I had a strange first experience with Dawahs at the Speaker's Corner. It was very much unlike my experiences with atheists, which I usually do. So I was here in London at the Speaker's Corner to mostly engage with skeptics, but what I saw was it was mostly these Dawahs who were propagating their faith with a lot of trickery and mockery, and the historic Speaker's Corner is now a yelling corner. I saw shouting matches with little scope for reason and evidence. It was an unusual territory for me, so I will play a clip of that exchange with a popular Dawah figure there, surrounded by his gang, and I'll add some comments to the end of the clip, so watch till the end. I will also expose some logical fallacies in the conversation, and you will see how he backs out of the conversation once I bring up Isaiah 53. I also want you to keep an eye for how he deflects evidence, dodges the topic multiple times, and then tries to shift when the initial and the topic that we began discussing on was John's description of Jesus' death an eyewitness account. So watch out for the red herrings, meaning these irrelevant points that are raised, and the art of dodging evidence, and I will add some comments towards the end of the video.
This example from here. For example, while recording the scene of the crucifixion, 1934, I believe, he says blood and water gush down. Yeah? On the side, right? None of the other three gospel writers who are writing about that incident dare to mention that particular detail. This man did, because when he said, what is blood and water? He was not mentioned it. But John, this gospel writer mentions it, and then he goes on to say that because I'm saying it because I actually saw it. The disciple who saw it is writing towards the end of the only saying that. Why is that detail important? Because today, through medical science, we know what the condition that would have happened is called pleural effusion, in which water-like fluid, plasma-like fluid, segregate from blood at the point of the cardiac arrest, and when the side was clear, water-like fluid and blood was gushed out. Back in that day, no one could have explained it.
Just because there's a detail there, it doesn't
Come on.
that someone was.
Come on.
1 second. A detail does not prove that he was an eyewitness. Because what we need, for example, an eyewitness testimony, eyewitness testimony is more than just a detail. Is he a believer in Christ? He's a Christian, right?
He's a scholar, and he's done good work.
No, it's not good works. I want to say, as a bias of your faith can cloud your judgment of all these historical narratives.
I will put that. The argument is good.
The argument is not good. I'll tell you why it's good.
I do not really explain that.
This details what is details.
Before you respond to it.
And what you said, what I haven't responded about?
Yeah. So if, let's say, a detail is being recorded by the only gospel who is an eyewitness, which is not recorded when the others are writing about the death of Jesus, and through modern medical science, you can explain that to the victim, right? And they would not have predicted it, okay? They would not have predicted what we were supposed to because this is
One second. Is John writing under inspiration?
yeah.
When you are inspired by God, you can actually know a lot of things which medical science they don't have done.
Yeah.
So it's a point again. Because if this information comes from John, you don't have to bring medical science and say, oh, he didn't know. So your argument, why these kind of information. In fact, what we find is, look, this is what you're saying. So let's talk about the Matthew's dead saints. When they
Don't
no.
The question is, John eyewitness account.
One second. I have a push button. I want you to address this. If you said this is how the criteria of historical acceptance is, when the only gospel writer mentions about the dead saints coming up from the grounds and appearing to multiple people in the city, did that happen historically? What I'm simply saying is that if a dinosaur came up from this dinosaur, let's put him walking around and went back. Do you think if only person narrating was you, and I didn't talk about it, no one else talked about it, what are the Hindus, Christians, Hindus, this, like this, no one mentions it. A huge, magnificent event comes this down. You expect to talk about it, go to their friends, their families. If that event happened, and many people witnessed it, want to see them, they will be talking about this narrative with their children, their grandchildren, total silence of this information. So, do you think really this is something that you expect?
This shows that we are very knowledge about how historiography actually works and what of history is actually lost to us. Wait.
Now, I already what I want you to do. I would like you to respond to this point. Why let no one else record it? Go ahead. No one else record it.
This was a big natural decide to enter comparison.
I'm not asking anything. I just want to explain to me why did no one record this particular narration is not history? How do you know no one recorded it? You have any evidence for it?
That's actually called, that's why I feel that much of the first century history, the most prominent first century historian during this time was a man called Justin. You heard about it? Have you heard about it? Wait. Excuse me.
I'm going to answer what you just said. You have records of narrations of one man called Jesus Christ, right? His so-called crucifixion and his so-called resurrection, multiple people writing it, right? Is that right? And when we have multiple people coming up from the graves, dead people, resurrected, live again, walking, and only one person narrating. See the point here.
You see the problem? Most of first century Christian history is lost to us. That's the point I said. Do you know about Justin?
No. So now you're saying we now have many people writing about one person's death and crucifixion and resurrection. We have got this. It didn't get lost in history. It didn't get lost in history. We have it. And yet, more profound and more significant, dead people coming up from their graves. Once again, dead people coming up from the graves and going to multitudes of people. Somehow, we got all of this interesting aspects lost in history.
What I said is that it's a matter of historical fact. The first century, a lot of it in history is lost to us. So even if there are people who recorded that, I did mention that the most prominent Jewish historian during Jesus' time, we have nothing of his left. Everything what he has written is gone. No, let me complete.
Finish your point, but answer my point.
Matthew records it because he has a particular theological point of view. Other gospel writers, even they did not record it. Part of the agenda. You were talking about a time when the cost of a papyrus sheet was 1 day's labor.
What are all the other chroniclers? The Jewish, the pagans, what happened to them? How come they did not record this?
They did not find it relevant to record.
Seriously?
Secondly,
do you really
they
think
have recorded? I've already said this categorically. I've named one of the most prominent Jewish historians during Jesus' day, around AD 30, named Justus. All of his writings are lost. So we don't even know if he recorded. Therefore, your argument, brother, is an argument from side.
No. My argument is clear.
There's a major deflection. No, let me say. There's a major deflection that happened here. He started by asking me to, give evidence for John being an eyewitness, and I did give one evidence. And then when I want to give
his circumstantial point about a detail does not prove he's an eyewitness. He could. Let me tell you why. He could easily, if that was historically true to begin with, okay, for the argument's sake, he could easily get from secondary, tertiary material. He doesn't need to be an eyewitness for this thing to say.
But he claims to be an eyewitness, and then that is actually substantiated by the claims he made.
Somebody just claims doesn't make his claim true. Do you accept that?
If it is corroborated by evidence, okay.
No. If we find no other gospel writers corroborating John, and many of the historians, for example, then we know the Gospel of John, gospel writer, is putting things in the mouth of Christ. Excuse me. The writer, John's attribution, putting the words of Jesus. No, his word in his mouth. Isn't that what the scholars say?
No, that's not what it's called.
That is what the scholars say. One second. Are there Christian scholars in Christian academia in which they say John is writing and projecting not of a historical Jesus, what he said, but rather he's projecting John's own theology, own words, and saying this is what Jesus said? Do we have Christian scholars who said in academic publications? I'm asking, do you know them? No, I'm simply asking to see whether you actually read historical and academic scholarship. Good. So are you aware of any scholarship where Christian scholars who study this field who said that?
I don't want to answer that way.
Because you have got...
That is irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant.
That's irrelevant.
No, that is irrelevant. That really shows...
Remember when we started the conversation.
That really shows
the evidence that there is a decay that John could not have invented, but he is an eyewitness. He writes, that blood and let me finish it.
You did not
blood and water gushed from the side.
Someone else.
And then he also claims to be the eyewitness within the gospel itself multiple times.
But we know from the evidence.
This is not going to end where it is
finish your point that I will speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. There is a claim that is made which could not have been invented in that era. Right? All the three other gospel writers, maybe they heard that John said something like, water and blood gushed out from his side. But well, even Luke being a physician, faces that the age, medical science could not explain it. Therefore, he did not probably write about it. But John, he said that I am an eyewitness. I saw, and the next verse he says that the very next verse he says that the one who's testifying is the one who actually saw this. And
can you quote me exactly what he said?
John 19:34. Here's what I'm quoting from a peer-reviewed medical science journal. It says clearly the weight of historical and medical evidence indicates that Jesus was dead before the wound to his side was inflicted, and supports a traditional view that the spear thrust between his right ribs probably perforated not only the right lung but also the pericardium and lung, and thereby ensured his death. And here is one of the key opponents of the Christian view, Gerd Ludemann. He writes, the historian Gerd Ludemann writes, the fact of the death of Jesus as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable, despite hypotheses of a pseudo-death or a deception, which are sometimes put forward. It need not be discussed in academia further.
Of faith claim. So now tell me again what you've read, see if you've comprehended what you've read. So now tell me, what was the mechanism of his death? How did he die on the cross?
Jesus had already suffered a lot.
What did he
including
suffer?
a condition called hemisphere.
And what is that?
You don't know what is it.
I'm asking you. Tell us.
The
What is
reason
it?
is because you've been
Excuse me.
question.
I'm
I
asking
just
you
want to
wait.
I just want to expose you.
Don't just waffle around. I'm asking you a simple
I
question.
want to just expose.
Tell me now.
for the people who are
Hang on.
seeing. I want to expose
And
you that you have not, actually not read the
you
literature.
can do the exposition, no problem. So how did he die? What condition did he have?
Hematidrosis. Tell me what is hematidrosis.
I'm asking you, what is that?
Because you need to be an expert on it.
Excuse me. When did I say I was expert?
No, you.
Look at the deflection.
You
So,
said.
don't deflect it.
You said.
Don't
that,
deflect.
Oh, in academia has.
Excuse me.
Are there any scholars?
Instead of
who have said
deflecting,
this? Yeah.
deflecting. So this condition again, say it once more so everyone can hear.
Hematidrosis.
Hematodosis. And what is that condition? Let's hear it all.
It is the condition where under extreme stress, very, very rare occurrence in modern medical science is identified, under extreme duress, a person would sweat blood.
In extreme duress. So Jesus Christ, who came according to them voluntarily to die on the cross, obviously it's not going to be extremely duress.
Yeah, that is your
One second. You believe Jesus knew he's going to be sacrificed. That's the whole idea, isn't it? So someone who knows I'm going to get sacrificed on the cross, does that follow rationally at all that he's going to be extremely duress so much that he's going to sweat blood?
because
Nonsense.
he was not the product of a Gnostic
Hang
belief.
on. Nonsense.
That is
So,
not nonsense, dude.
Look,
Because
hey, listen.
Yeah.
Someone in your belief who came to self-sacrifice on the cross
Yeah.
knows that this is what I have to do.
Yes.
This is my mission.
Yes.
So now is he going to be really worried so much that he's sweating blood? No.
Okay.
Anyone say yes? Raise your hand. Say yes. No. No one agreeing with you, my friend. Because the reality is,
Okay.
the reality
If a bunch of Muslims would stand
get
there
some
and-
Christians,
and
get
say-
some Christians,
Yeah.
get some atheists.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
the reality is, there shouldn't be any kind of stress and worry and anxiety because he knows this is what his outcome is.
But
His
he was
mission.
fully man.
Wait,
He was fully man.
But was he not God of
came,
the
he
sorry.
came here to suffer.
wait.
He came here to suffer.
But
And
there
the
was no suffering.
began in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Uh-huh.
Now,
So
listen
this-
to me. Listen to me.
One second.
Listen
Can
to
you?
me. Listen to me.
I will.
Yeah.
But
Let me just complete.
just
Let me
no.
complete.
Just make
talk.
this.
He's doing a monologue.
This condition.
He's
that you
just doing a monologue.
This
He's just
condition-
speaking.
This
Does
monologue.
not-
I'm not
does
interested
not-
in this monologue.
And
I'm
now
not
you don't
interested in
like
this
it
monologue.
because when you are scrutinized,
I put
you don't like it.
I put forward 2 details, my friends. You can check
That's
this out.
not
You
proof.
can check this out.
You can check it out. It
Luke
doesn't
being
prove.
a physician.
Was he an eyewitness?
Yeah, Luke being a physician.
Was he an eyewitness?
When he heard.
Hey, was he an eyewitness?
When he heard that Jesus sweat blood, a detail that other gospel writers did not record, he writes it down. Today
Was he
we
an
know
eyewitness?
that the
me.
condition is hematidrosis. Hematidrosis.
Was Luke an
Yeah.
eyewitness?
Luke wrote based
Answer
on
the question. Was he an eyewitness?
No, he was not an eyewitness.
No, he was an eyewitness, and he's writing from other people.
Yeah.
Rumors.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hang on.
Air India flight crash.
Hello.
People see it.
He's writing from other people where it's all about rumors that Jesus was this. He was sweating blood and he was sweating honey and he was sweating popcorn. You can mention all
Do you really understand
I
how
listen.
stupid an argument you're making?
Look,
when modern medical science actually looks back and tells you that a person under such severe duress,
Why would he be in the duress?
because he was fully man and he suffered fully for the sake of humanity.
Wait. What was the duress that made him sweat blood? Tell me.
Because he knew that as a human, the pain and the suffering
Wait,
that he was going to go through during the night.
Wait, slow down. What is going to happen is going to be crucifixion, right? Many people were crucified.
Yeah.
So he is God on earth, according to your belief,
Yeah.
but he has a human body because he's assumed a human body. So this human body was so weak, and that God is not supporting this human body at all in your theology, that he is now so much under duress, he's suffering. Does it add up?
First of all,
Does it add up?
see how far this has deflected. I have
No,
given
no,
two
you're-
details in the gospel.
All your
that
supporting
they could not have
evidence
predicted or invented
is
on their own,
actually our
which
whitewash.
indicate today that
It
it was
doesn't
an
add up.
eyewitness account.
It doesn't make any
because medical details, they could
doesn't help
not
you.
have invented it.
That doesn't help you.
Secondly, when Jesus was fully human being, he took the pain, the
What pain?
suffering,
What pain?
the suffering
What's suffering?
from humanity brought into the Garden of
I don't know.
Gethsemane.
What suffering did you take in? You have a human being is really worried, really in anxiety,
Yeah.
in sweating blood. Now, what pain is he suffering? What pain?
What do you mean by what pain?
An individual who is God on earth, like he's God.
Yeah.
He knows. Did you know he was God, right?
Yeah.
So he's God and he knows he's God.
Yeah.
And now he's so much worried that I'm going to die by crucifixion.
He's not worried. Come on, how are you putting words in my mouth?
Hang on. So
I'm
he's
saying that
hang on.
he
So-
suffered the pain
What
as a
pain?
complete human being.
What pain
You
is he
need
suffering?
to read
What pain is he suffering?
as a human being.
He's God on
whatever-
earth. One second.
whatever.
He's
So by
God
the
on
way,
earth.
by the way, hundreds of years before Christ, Isaiah 53, hundreds of years before Christ, he foretold, and by the Dead Sea Scrolls, we know that this was written well before Christ, also this and said that he was a man of sorrow, which means
Who is
that he
that
took
referring to?
to Jesus.
No, does it name it? Does it
Okay,
name Jesus?
Read Isaiah 53, please.
No. I'm asking you because you are the one who believes it. Does it name Jesus? Does it say Messiah? Or does it actually talk about the suffering servant who is Israel?
It talks about the suffering servant who is Christ.
No, it doesn't say Christ anywhere in the text, does it?
My dear brothers
second.
and sisters who are
Hello?
listening to me here,
Can I ask you a simple
if
question?
you just
Would you dare
Google
tell me?
and read
You don't
Isaiah
Google. When it
53,
comes to scholarship, you don't Google.
Isaiah, no, not scholarship.
Wait.
I'm saying Isaiah 53. If you read it for for your own,
I have read it. Have you read it?
I haven't.
I don't think you have.
I
Look
haven't.
what I mentioned. In Isaiah 53, it talks about he shall see his seed.
Yes.
In the language, the seed is literal. It's not metaphorical because this word is not used metaphorically. I hope you knew that, right? Because as a Christian, you should know that. And he shall see his progeny. So this individual or nation that he's talking about, that shall see his seed and see his progeny, if that referred to Jesus, has Jesus brought any children, literal sons, daughters? No. Has Jesus got literal progeny? No. So I'm afraid
It is
Isaiah
not talking
53,
about literal-
excuse me,
Through Christ,
Isaiah
we are children
53,
of God.
Isaiah 53 cannot and would never indicate it's referring to Christ because it's talking about someone or some nation of the group will see literal seed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my friend, you didn't know anything about that. You need to learn a bit
I
more
am
about
so
the Old
much
Testament.
shocked by the lack of,
There's no point waffling in him
yeah,
because
he doesn't even understand.
you don't have any support
Isaiah
for what you
53.
say.
Okay.
Luke, John, whatever
Okay.
you bring,
Okay.
none of them can help your belief.
I-
Where God,
When I showed you,
you haven't showed me anything.
when I showed you clearly, the Gospel of John is an eyewitness account. Give you, and still you are not going to.
let's go back to
want
Isaiah
accept it.
53.
Yeah, Isaiah
Isaiah
53.
53.
Yeah.
He shall see his seed.
No, but
He shall see his
you are
seed.
saying it is rain, right?
I'm saying it's literal.
What is this prophecy about?
Excuse me. I'm saying it talks about he shall see his seed is literal. Now,
Not literal.
if you don't,
out
it's
of your
literal.
own English you can argue. However,
the word seed in the Hebrew.
tell me about Isaiah 53. Who is Isaiah 53 about?
Don't deflect it.
Who is Isaiah 53 about? With a straight face, give me an answer.
Suffering servant Israel.
Israel. Okay, here it says, He has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. He has borne our griefs. He's writing to the Jews, to Israel. He's saying that Israel has borne our griefs.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I didn't say the Isaiah narrative, all of it is literal. Did I say that? So this is why
I said Isaiah 53.
Can I?
Who is it about? The question is clear. Who is Isaiah 53 about? Written hundreds of years before Christ.
According to the Jews, who is it referring to? According to the Jewish people and their scholarship, for thousands of years, who is it referring to?
They have deflected on this much.
Excuse me.
Some of them
Wait.
have actually
Wait!
Yeah.
According to Jewish practice and their belief and their tradition,
Yeah.
who is it referring to?
They have deflected on this. Some rabbis
Who
have
is it
said-
referring to?
Some rabbis have tried to
Who is it
argue.
referring to?
Some of the rabbis have tried
He's
to
not answering.
argue that
Notice-
it is about Israel.
notice
Their argument
how
says,
he
and
is
that
not
is
answering
why,
the question.
even very prominent Jews have come to Christ because after reading Isaiah 53, for example, one of the world's leading scientists, James II, who is a Jew, right?
I don't know anyway.
Right? He, by ISI index, one of the world's leading scientists at Rice University, a nanochemist, he came to Christ by reading Isaiah 53 because even Jews understand that they are deflecting on Isaiah 53.
I am going to ask you once more.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you once. Fine. I'm not going to ask you because I don't want to repeat it again. According to the Jewish belief and their tradition, their practice, and their scholarship, who is it referring to?
According to the Jewish belief, who is it referring to? When Moses said a prophet will come after me, who is it referring to?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Yeah.
Now they will say, so who is it referring to as per the Jewish belief? I'm just trying to expose his fallacious reasoning. The Jewish interpretation of the prophecy is not the right, need not be the right interpretation of the prophecy. He said it is about the suffering of Israel. But this is what it says. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. Hundreds of years before Christ, this was clearly written down, and the Jews rejected the Messiah, and the fact that they would reject the Messiah was also in the Old Testament, which clearly indicates that the prophecy was about Jesus.
Yes.
Okay, to deflect this.
Now,
Yeah.
thank you for all of the singing and dancing. Answer my question. According to the Jewish understanding of the text, by their tradition, by their rabbis, by their scholars, who is it referring to?
The Messiah.
Don't tell me who it's not referring to. Who is it referring to?
The Messiah.
One last chance.
The Messiah. As per the Jewish rabbis, they know this is a clear problem for them in their own scriptures, and therefore they have.
How do you know? You are not a Jew.
No, you deflect. Answer the question. Go on. What do you mean by this? You can last chance to save your face. Go on. Answer the question. Who do they refer this referring to?
They have tried to argue it that it is about Israel.
That's the end of discussion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but was it
worthy of having a discussion?
That is a fallacious.
just have to let him speak.
That is a fallacious reason.
You just have to let him speak.
He's
He's asking.
I will tell you why.
Question.
If he's walking out, if he's
Just a quick question.
if he's walking out, let him walk out. But let me tell you guys what happened here. Let me tell you what happened here.
Just a quick question.
You're trying to dodge because you know
Why
the
are you
truth.
running away? Why
You know the truth.
Why are you running away from
They're
the
afraid of
truth?
arguing.
Why
You know the truth.
Why are you running away from
They're
the
afraid of
truth?
arguing. Yeah, but we just came. We just came. Yeah, we want to ask a different question.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jesus is Lord and he's coming again. Be safe and choose the way. God bless you all.
Yeah, because that is a fallacious reasoning. Let me tell you why. Because the Jewish people have tried to dodge this particular passage because they know it is a problem for them.
So yeah, that was a really crazy experience. Toward the end, as you see, a few people showed up, probably Christians, and they start pressing him to answer my questions, but then he backs out, he walks away. And you see also a Muslim man who walks past me and hurling in some insults or curses in his local language. So that was a really crazy experience. Anyway, this video is also a textbook example of logical fallacies that you should avoid in debates. Firstly, red herrings. So he brings up these irrelevant points to deflect evidence. For instance, at some point, he wanted to shift the conversation away to whether there are scholars who argue that John is casting his theological agenda on Jesus. What has that to do with this particular conversation on whether Jesus actually died on the cross and that John is an eyewitness? There are always going to be scholars across the different ends of the spectrum, but that has nothing to do with the point of discussion here. And ironically, when pressed with medical science details that John could not have invented or foreseen, he says that John was writing under divine inspiration.
When you are inspired by God, you can actually know a lot of things which medical science they don't have done.
Really? How could you say both of that at the same time? Secondly, arguments from silence. That's an age-old fallacy when someone says that something is not true because it is not recorded in certain historical sources. Now, notice that the point of conversation here is the death of Jesus, which is, by the way, the most well-attested incident of the first century Jewish history. He deflects it to a different incident from Matthew 28, which he says is only recorded by Matthew. The problem here is multifold. Firstly, notice that I ask him a counter question, which is the most deadly natural disaster of the first century in that era, in that place. He does not answer that question, either is not aware, or he knows that by answering that question, he would be setting himself up. It's the volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius which destroyed entire Roman cities, 20,000 plus people killed. Guess what? We do not have any written source from the first century of that incident apart from the letters of a Roman official from the second century. That does not mean that it was not recorded in the first century. What it probably means is that whatever was written is lost to us. The disaster obviously may have been recorded by several authors in the first century, but we only have 1%. Notice that we only have 1% of Jewish Roman writings from the first century that are retained to us today. So 99% of whatever was written and recorded in that era is lost to us. I also mentioned the name Justus of Tiberias, who was a contemporary of Jesus from the first century, the most prominent Jewish historian of that day. Guess what? Nothing from him, none of his writings have survived. So for a lot of major events of that era, you hardly have a single written source. But again, notice that for Jesus' death, you have multiple written sources, both Christian and non-Christian, and that's why historians do not dispute the fact of Jesus' death. And finally, I also brought up Isaiah 53 in the conversation. Through the Dead Sea Scrolls, we clearly know that these prophecies were written hundreds of years before Christ, and they clearly depict the suffering and death of Jesus the Messiah. To which his response was, what is the Jewish interpretation of that prophecy? I did not answer the question in one word the way that he wanted to, because the Jewish interpretation of the prophecy has always aimed to deflect and dodge the implication of the prophecy that was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. A counter question that I raised there, which he did not answer, by the way, that in Deuteronomy, Moses foretells of a prophet who would come after him. To the Muslims, they say that this is Muhammad. But then, what is the Jewish interpretation of the prophecy? There you have it. You cannot apply that criteria because that criteria is a fallacious one. You have to look at the evidence and then claim as to what the prophecy was about. He deflects, he dodges, that he eventually then walks away. Bottom line, the Dawahs cannot stand the evidence. Just think about this. Muslims are willing to accept a lot of things about Jesus, that he was sinless, that he was born of a virgin, a miracle worker, all of that. But they will always deny the very purpose for which Jesus came. He came to die on the cross. These prophecies were written well before him and foretold the death of Jesus. Jesus himself, in the Gospels, he foretells his crucifixion and his death at the hands of the Jews and the Romans. And you will believe everything about this man Jesus. You would glorify him as a prophet, but if you deny the very reason for which he came and the very source of your salvation, you would have rather denied all of him. Thank you. This is Asher for the Carpenter's Desk.